I'm gonna show you a fish catch right now, and I need you to guess what time of the year I caught this fish just based on the sound.
Oh, here we go. Eat it. Oh, you're big. You're big. Oh, gosh. Holy cow. Holy cow. Big one. Big one. Oh my gosh. That was like one of the fastest charges I've ever had a fish do. Oh my gosh.
Can't guess it? Let me show you exactly what my sonar looked like during that bite.
Oh, here we go. Eat it. Oh, you're big. You're big. Oh gosh. Holy cow. That was like one of the fastest charges I've ever had a fish do. Oh my gosh.
And if that footage didn't blow your mind enough, here's the kicker. I caught that big, aggressive, fast fish during the middle of the winter after a severe cold front that dropped our water by 10 degrees. Talk about stereotypically tough conditions. So in this video, I'm going to disprove a fishing myth that you may believe is true. That way you can understand your bodies of water better and catch more bass. My name's Tyler, and let's talk about it.
Another giant. Another giant. Look at that, y'all.
I can't believe what I just caught.
Yes!
Man, I cannot wait to bust this myth with you guys, but the first thing I want to share is that I dropped some brand new merch. The first thing you'll notice about this clothing is that it's not Tyler's Real Fishing branded merch, as you would expect. It says Infinite Outdoors. Let me explain what that means. This brand exists to remind us of God's infinite glory revealed in the outdoors around us, and to remind us that God showed infinite amounts of love through the sacrifice of his son Jesus on the cross for our sins so that we can come to know him. My goal for making this clothing is that when you wear it, people ask questions and real life conversations get started. We just dropped our winter apparel line, which has soft pullover sweatshirts, normal sweatshirts, AFCO branded Reaper sweatshirts, and some awesome hats. By supporting this brand, you are not only helping TRF continue to grow, but also building an awesome new brand in Infinite Outdoors, which I'm super pumped about. I'm gonna leave the link down in the video description if you wanna help support the brand. If not, totally cool. Let's get back to the myth. And the huge bass fishing myth is this, that the bass moves slow when cold weather comes in and therefore cools down the water temperature. And I don't care if you beat the bank, fish in a kayak, or a big bass boat, you might believe this to be true. And I think we believed this for so long because it kind of makes logical sense, right? That as cold weather comes, all the bass would move out of the shallow areas of the pond, the shallow banks on a big lake, and they would go to deeper water because it's more consistent, more stable. Well, I have seen too many things over the past few years in all my fishing adventures to still believe that's true. And the first thing I have seen and experienced is the learning process that comes from using forward-facing sonar like LiveScope. Now, whatever your feelings are towards forward-facing sonar technology, forget about that for a second, because that technology has brought about the awesome ability to be able to watch bass without even making a cast, to understand their behavior in the water, how they interact with cover, with structure, with bait fish. Without even catching a fish, we can learn a ton about these fish that we never could before. And over the past 4 years of using LiveScope, I have learned so much about fish behavior that has allowed me to disprove this myth really in two specific ways. The first way is that I have been able to capture some straight National Geographic level footage of bass exploding through schools of bait fish like you would think they do in the summer or fall, but guess what? They still do it in the middle of the harshest winter. The footage you are seeing on your screen right now is a school of bait fish in 48-degree water, which for Texas is kind of a good average winter day. And until recently, I had no clue that bass were exploding like you're seeing right now through these bait fish, even in cold water temperatures. I mean, you can tell they are crazy active, coming in from the bottom and the sides to explode through those bait fish, almost like a tarpon or a shark through a school of mullet in saltwater. Seeing this happen in real time truly made me rethink if I should believe in this winter fishing myth. And the second way that forward-facing sonar has shown me this is not worth believing in is that when I'm retrieving my lure, I would say half the time to 3/4 of the time that I retrieve it next to a fish, that fish needs the lure to be speeding up, almost like it's getting away from that fish in order for it to strike. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some days when a slow-rolled swim bait or Alabama rig gets that fish to follow from a long ways away. But in my experience, the majority of the fish, whether it's a spinnerbait, a jerkbait, an Alabama rig, they need that bait to kind of surprise them, to shock them into reacting to that bait, which I didn't think would actually work in cold water. But guess what? It does, and I've seen it in real time. And now that I get to thinking, there's actually one more way in which LiveScope has taught me that this myth is not true, and that is that I have seen and caught plenty of bass in a lot shallower water than I thought there would be in super cold water. On the same fishing day as that first big fish catch on the Alabama rig, I caught 3 bass, including one nice 4.5 pounder in less than 5 feet of water. I could see them on the graph. They were actively moving around in the shallows, and yet the water was 47. Now, one exception I will give that might make this myth somewhat true is that in the morning, in cold water situations, the bass are a lot less active than they are in the afternoon. But if we're just gonna go a blanket statement that when the water is cold, the bass are slow moving, that's just not true, because the water warms up in the afternoon, especially on a sunny, bright day like we had on this specific fishing day. That brought the water temperatures from, I think, 42 to 47 or 48. It got all the bass active, even though it was still cold, and I caught them both shallow and deep on slow and fast-moving lures. A funny comparison I thought of that might apply, might not, is NFL players in cold versus warm weather. I am sure that football players that play in a snowy, cold Lambeau Field or in Buffalo, New York, probably can't move or hit as fast and as hard as they can in, say, a covered stadium like the Dallas Cowboys. But here's the deal. They are still NFL players, so I don't care how cold it is, they are still able to hit much harder than I ever could, no matter how cold it is. And I think bass are the exact same way, that if the weather is cold, the bass may be a little bit slower, but they still have every capacity possible to chase a lure fast and hit it. But how does now knowing this information change the way you should fish? And I think the answer to that question is relatively simple, and it is that you should be keeping on your reaction baits all throughout the winter and cold weather months, even when you think it's too cold for a fish to bite, a crankbait, a jerkbait, an Alabama rig. Guess what? They probably can. One thing that cold weather can do, though, is it can change the water's quality. As big cold fronts blow through and bring with them wind and tons of rain, it can change the water color, aka the quality, up shallow, which will move some fish from where they were living up shallow to out deep for a few days until the water gets back to normal. But besides that situation, from what I'm learning from forward-facing sonar and all the pro fishermen I hang out with and talk to on tour, I don't think bass all get slow during the winter. That is a myth that needs to be broken. Now, when it comes to cold water fishing, the primary forage species in the majority of lakes is baitfish, and there is no better lure to imitate a school of baitfish than an Alabama rig. And it just so happens I've made a masterclass video teaching y'all how to fish an Alabama rig and find success. So I will leave that video up here in the corner. As y'all saw, I caught my big fish in this video on an Alabama rig, and it's a fantastic cold water lure. So if you want to learn all about it and how to do it right, watch that video.